These new watch faces are so much fun. Can you see this? It's my daughter, there's the time of day. If I tap, I get even more pictures. You just cycle through them. Ha! But we're not here to talk about that. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm Dave from Chase the Summit, and today we're gonna talk about Apple WatchOS 11 again. If you follow my channel, you'll know that yesterday I posted a video about Apple WatchOS 11 and all the new fitness and running features, including the new training load, the effort rating, the new mapping and route creation. And in that video, it was sort of a hands-on preview of all of the capabilities and features and how everything works in Apple WatchOS 11 and iOS 18 in its current beta form. However, in that video, I didn't share a whole lot of criticism, and I didn't really share how these features could be better. So I'm back today to talk about all of these new features yet again. And I'm doing this for two main reasons, because I think it's important for you to know the downfalls of some of these features right now in its current beta form before you run out and install this stuff on your phone. And the other reason I'm making this video is for Apple. I'm hopeful that Apple watches this, maybe they learn a thing or two, and hopefully take my opinions to heart and maybe implement it in its full production version down the road. I guess we'll see. With the long-winded intro out of the way, let's dive into the first topic, and that is going to be training load and effort rating. Just as a quick reminder, training load is a tool to help you identify where your training is on a given week, on both a 28-day metric and a 7-day metric. And if we take a look at the graph on training load, you'll see a white line that indicates your 28-day average, kind of where you're trending, and then your 7-day training load will be that squiggly, super colorful line indicating your past 7 days of activity. I do think there is one issue with training load in its current form, and it's that on a daily basis, you don't really get a high and low value on where your training should be for that time frame. If we take a look at the graph, you can see we do have that white line, which indicates your trend over the past 28 days. And then we've got the 7-day training load. Now, if that 7-day training load is lined up exactly with that white line, it will say that you're steady. However, if you're slightly above that white line or slightly below that white line, it will either say above or below where you should be. And that really doesn't tell you the whole story when it comes down to actually training, when it comes to your actual training load. In reality, there is a bit of a window there. There's like a high and low value for your everyday steady training load. It's never going to be exactly the same on a day-to-day basis. If we take a look at the competition, like Garmin, for example, their training load shows you sort of a green highlighted area that's kind of the window of where you want your training load to be. And I do think this little green highlighted area is a better visual representation on your training load. I'm kind of giving you a goal to stay within that range for a given time period. So in my opinion, I think it would be in Apple's best interest to add in a little highlighted area just like their competitors are doing. There's a reason why everyone else does this. So I even went on my laptop in Photoshop and I kind of mocked up what this could possibly look like using one of Apple's stock photos. And here you can see there's the graph. It shows the white line in the 7-day and 28-day training load. But on top of that, there's a little, transparent area that's kind of following the trend of the white line, but giving you sort of a visual representation of the range your training should be within. Keeping it basic like Apple seems to want it, they don't need to add any more context around this. Just give us that little window, that little highlighted area, and let us know where the training should be within, and when you're outside of that, that's when you're either above or below. One more thing I want to mention about Apple's new training load functionality is that there is another huge limitation in that you need to own an Apple Watch for this feature to be enabled. For example, if you don't have an Apple Watch paired to your phone, you won't see the little icon in Apple Fitness to view your training load. And I think this is kind of strange because, like I said, that all-day training load metric can be calculated from your movement throughout the day. And your iPhone in your pocket actually does pick up some of your movement throughout the day without needing an Apple Watch. So I think they should enable this for everybody. For now, they're locking it down to people who own an Apple Watch, which I guess makes sense from a business perspective, but I think for the end user, it could be of value for everybody out there. Now let's jump over to effort rating. And if you aren't aware of what effort rating is, it's just a generalized rating on how intense one of your workouts is. Now this effort rating is automatically calculated for certain activities, including outdoor running and riding a bike, and it will just generate that if you use an Apple product. And effort rating is super important because training load relies entirely on this effort rating metric. It basically takes effort rating in conjunction with a duration of your activity to generate the training load metric. There's a couple of things with effort rating. So first of all, the automatic calculation of effort rating does work. And on most of my activities, it felt pretty accurate. But I did find that for the most part for me, during the time I tested this out over the past month or so, I did find on super easy casual workouts where I would put my effort rating down in like 2, maybe 3 at most. I did find that it was a little bit aggressive in those areas and it would put me up in the moderate range at like a 4 or 5. And then on the flip side, during super hard workouts, when I was out on the track doing sprints or something like that, doing interval workouts and really maxing out my heart rate at like 193 beats per minute, I wasn't getting all the way up into that all-out zone. I really don't think it's possible for me to get to that all-out zone in effort rating. I was killing myself on a couple of these workouts, and at most it would give me an 8 out of 10. I could never get it all the way up to 10 out of 10. And the reason behind all of this and the fact that the effort rating would report harder workouts when they're easy and easier workouts when they're super hard is I think there should be some sort of calibration process when you start using this feature. For example, during the setup process for training load, when you actually activate it or start using it on your phone and on your watch, you get a series of welcome screens that kind of introduce you to training load and what it's all about. I think during that process, they could actually add a little button that could be like, improve accuracy by taking a test, and maybe it guides you through a simple 10-minute workout outdoors on a running activity where you go through different zones, and it will guide you through that on the watch, telling you to easily walk for a little while and then, ramping up to an all-out run for some users out there. I think they could take that data from that little test workout and improve the accuracy all around with the automatic calculation of effort rating. But it seems like in its current form, they're sort of using default values for effort rating, maybe based on your age and gender or something like that. I'm not totally sure, but it does seem like the auto calculation is a little bit off in its current beta form. Again, this is not a huge issue for now because you can still go in and manually tweak effort rating after the fact. Another thing about effort rating is that it seems like it completely ignores environmental factors, and I do think it would be cool to include them in the automatic calculation of effort rating. For example, anything like heat or humidity is going to make your workout feel a lot harder and may not be represented in your heart rate during that activity. Apple already has all this data. These are super smart devices with weather apps and intelligence, and I'm sure they could find a way to incorporate that. Okie dokie, now that we've talked about training load and effort rating, let's talk about the other half of the equation here, and that is the new Vitals app. The new Vitals app is a way of measuring your overnight metrics, and that's including your blood oxygen saturation, your overall sleep duration, your resting heart rate, and your respiratory rate. And again, it will depend what watch you have as to what metrics you will get depending on what sensors are available on your watch. However, I do think Vitals could be a little bit better in some ways. And the first example of this is that on your Apple Watch, you have a dedicated app called Vitals. Literally in the app tray, you scroll down, you'll see Vitals as its own separate app. Now on the iPhone, on iOS 18, currently in its current beta form, there is no Vitals app, which I thought was kind of strange. So you have an app on your watch, but you don't get that same app on your phone. And I think just as a visual way of checking in on things, it would be nice to see the Vitals app available on your phone as well, formatted in a similar way. So you can view your Vitals app data by diving into the graphs in training load on your phone, which is kind of interesting because it will show you your training load, it'll show you what activities you did on a given day, and then down below, it'll show you your vitals from the day before and the day after. So you can kind of correlate what that activity did to your resting heart rate, for example. Now jumping back to the Vitals app and the metrics it collects for a second, there's one glaring thing missing here, and I found this really odd. So they are tracking your overall sleep duration, your blood oxygen saturation level, your resting heart rate, your respiratory rate, all of that stuff. However, the Vitals app completely ignores HRV, or heart rate variability. And HRV is arguably one of the best ways to track your daily wellness, particularly during sleep, because it's affected by intense workouts or getting sick, becoming ill, or even alcohol consumption. You'll notice if you track HRV and you have a couple of glasses of wine the day before, that your HRV will completely tank, and it's pretty sensitive to all these different variables. The really interesting thing about HRV and the Vitals app is that your Apple Watch actually does collect HRV. However, Apple doesn't really use this data for anything. They just kind of like bury HRV in the Apple Health app on your phone. So if you dive into the Apple Health app and go into other metrics and scroll down through there, you will find HRV, but they're ignoring that data within the Vitals app. So personally, I think it would be smart for Apple to take HRV, because they're already collecting it, and include it in the Vitals app just as another metric that they can use and put on a graph at the top of the page there. And on that recovery topic, I also think in the Vitals app, it would be a good place to incorporate some sort of recovery score or some sort of readiness score. And again, this is something that other platforms are doing. For example, the Whoop platform has like a strain score and a recovery score. The Oura Ring has a readiness score. And all of this stuff is typically based off of that HRV metric, along with all of your activity from the previous day. It would be nice if they just took the data and did that work for you with some sort of readiness score. I think we would all appreciate that. And I think it would also challenge brands like Whoop and the Oura Ring, and even third-party apps like Athletic and Elite HRV, because all of those apps would be kind of hurting. And maybe that's why they're not doing this, because apps like Athletic would just go away if Apple did this for you. And I say all this because early on, when Apple announced all these new features back at WWDC, at that time, I was kind of assuming this was going to be like a Whoop killer, like an Athletic third-party app killer, and they just all go away because Apple is going to do it in-house now. But it's not a Whoop killer yet. It's just like your nightly metrics. With Vitals out of the way, let's get into the final piece of the pie here, and that's going to be navigation and route creation in Apple Maps, because it got a lot better in Apple WatchOS 11. In Apple's WatchOS 11 in its current beta form, you can now download maps to the watch itself, and this was a huge problem in WatchOS 10 because you would need your phone on you if you wanted to use offline maps and navigation. That is no longer the case here. You can actually download maps directly to your watch, go out into the wilderness, go on a hike, and still see your contour maps and all of the data that you'd have without your phone. However, even though there's been huge improvements in Apple Maps, there are still some flaws. Ultimately, I can summarize this whole thing by saying Apple Maps is still kind of a clone of Apple Maps on your phone. Don't get me wrong, it can get the job done, but there could be some improvements, and that's what I want to talk about now. So the first thing is, when you design a custom route within Apple Maps on your phone or even on your computer or your iPad or whatever, it doesn't give you the ability to choose your activity type. And because of that, when you create a custom route in Apple Maps on your phone, for example, the estimated time to completion is wildly off if you plan on using it for running or hiking. It'd be cool to see them add in running, or even better than that, take in your average pace from the past, couple of months or something like that, and come up with a smart estimate on how long that track would take to complete on your watch. Another issue with Apple Maps in this new implementation is that there's no GPX file importing. GPX files are basically the standard file format for sharing, routes and different created courses and things like that from platforms like Strava or Garmin Connect or All Trails. You can always export a GPX file and you can send it to your friend. If they're also doing the same route, they can load that on their watch and follow it in real time. There's GPX files out there everywhere. A lot of times you can sign up for a race, and a lot of times on the race website, you can download the GPX file for that course and load it on your watch. And again, there's no way to get a GPX file into your Apple Watch in its current form. Of course, there are third-party apps out there like Work Outdoors, for example, that can import GPX files and make use of them, but it would be really cool to see that available natively without having to get a third-party app. Another limitation that I've run into in Apple Maps when using it for running and hiking is that it doesn't appear to support reroute on the fly without a cellular connection. So this was something I was hoping for. Because we do have maps downloaded to the watch, I was hoping those maps would be routable, indicating if I took a wrong turn during my activity, it would just recalculate my route on how to get back to the correct course. But it doesn't do that right now. I'm not totally sure if this is a beta issue and it will be worked out down the road, but right now, when it gets to rerouting, if I go off course, I just get this endless spinning wheel that's trying to reroute me, but it never actually reroutes because I don't have a cellular connection or my phone on me. And finally, my biggest complaint with Apple Maps in the Workout app when you're trying to go for a run or a hike while also navigating is the fact that Apple treats these as two separate things. A lot of times I want to be navigating a route while also recording an activity like a run or a hike. And I think I'm not in the minority here. I think a lot of people out there are going to be hiking while also using maps at the same time. And currently, in its current form on WatchOS 11, they're two separate apps. So if you want to navigate a course, you're hiking up a hill, you're looking at your distance and speed and heart rate on your Apple Watch, and then you want to look at your map to see what turn is coming up, you have to literally switch apps. You can't do it all from within the workout app. So you have to either double tap on the digital crown to show recent apps, then click on the maps, and then see where you are, or go back to your app drawer, find Apple Maps, click on it, open it up, and then look to see where you are. I think this is such an easy fix, and I can't believe they haven't implemented it yet. Just take Apple Maps and embed it in the workout app, taking a mirrored image of what's going on in Apple Maps and embedding it as a separate page within the workout app. So then all you'd have to do is roll your digital crown when you're out on your activity or swipe through your screens, and you'll eventually get to a map page. This is literally what every other sports watch out there does, from Garmin to Coros to Suunto, whoever from Polar even does it now. You can cycle through all your data pages and eventually get to a map view without having to leave your workout. And the final issue I have with route creation right now is that if you create a route that you want to share with friends and family, currently I can't find a way to do that. So for example, if I designed a local 5K that I wanted to send to my wife and some friends to all do it at the same time, or maybe everybody does it on a different day, but we wanted to follow the same route, you can't do that in Apple Maps yet. And it seems like that would be something that a lot of people would want to do. And even like race organizations might even do that in the future if it was available, because so many people use Apple Watches. It would be cool to have a little button on your website where it's like download directly to Apple Maps. But at this current time, I can't find a way to do that either. And with that, that's sort of my list of what I think could be better in Apple Watch OS 11 with training load, effort rating, and maps, and all of those things. Again, this is totally my opinion. It's just my subjective take on where it stands right now and how I think it could be improved. And of course, keep in mind, this is still in beta and things are gonna change and morph as it moves through the production cycle and eventually is available on everyone's watches out there. But this entire video, like I just said, has been only my opinion, and now's the point of the video where I want to hear from you. Drop into the comments down below. Let me know what could be better on WatchOS 11, if you're testing it, what's missing, what you want to see down the road, what you want to see added, what features are missing. Just tell me all of that in the comments down below. I'd really love to hear from you. And with that, friends, we've reached the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you went down and gave me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel down below so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. That really helps my channel grow, and I really appreciate it. And while you're down there, check out the links in the description of this video for all of the products I talked about, including the Apple Watch Ultra 2 here. Those links are affiliate links. They help support this channel and help keep me doing the thing I'm doing here. And finally, check out the links over to my website where you can buy a sweet shirt like this, and all of my social media platforms like Instagram and Threads and TikTok or whatever else. Follow me on all those other things. Okay, friends, I hope you found it valuable, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.